They say silence is golden, that discretion is a virtue, that the wisest people speak less and listen more, that keeping your private life private is a sign of maturity, of boundaries, of self-respect. But what if you can't stop talking? What if the words pour out of you before you can catch them? What if you meet someone new and within minutes, you've told them things you swore you'd never say out loud? What if oversharing isn't a lack of boundaries, but a desperate, unconscious attempt to be seen by a world that has spent your entire life looking past you? We live in a society that praises restraint, mystery, the person who reveals nothing, who keeps their cards close, who shares only what is carefully curated and socially acceptable. And in that world, the oversharer becomes a problem. They're labeled as attention-seeking, inappropriate, exhausting, as if their honesty is an inconvenience, as if their need to be known is something to be ashamed of. But beneath the oversharing, beneath the stream of personal stories and vulnerable confessions to near strangers, there is rarely attention-seeking. There is loneliness. There is a wound so deep that it can only speak through compulsive disclosure. There is a child who learned that the only way to matter was to perform their pain, to make their story interesting enough that someone might finally stay. Oversharing is not about lacking boundaries. It's about having boundaries that were violated so many times you stop knowing where you end and others begin. It's about learning that love is conditional on entertainment value. It's about believing that if you don't tell them everything right now, they'll lose interest and disappear. This is not a story about people who talk too much. This is a story about people who are terrified of being forgotten, about the psychology of those who give away their deepest truths to strangers because intimacy has always felt safer with people who can leave than with people who might stay and hurt them. Let's begin. There is a particular vulnerability that lives in the moment after you've overshared. You know it immediately. The second the words leave your mouth, you feel it. The rush of regret, the sudden awareness that you've said too much, too soon, to someone who didn't ask. And in that moment, you want to disappear. You want to rewind time, to unsay what cannot be unsaid, to take back the parts of yourself you handed over like loose change. If you're someone who overshares, you know this feeling intimately. You know what it's like to walk away from a conversation replaying every sentence, cringing at your own honesty, wondering why you told a coworker about your childhood trauma, or why you unloaded your relationship problems on someone you just met at a party. You know the shame that comes after, the fear that you've made yourself too much, too intense, too vulnerable, too real, and the confusion is real too. Because you didn't mean to do it. You didn't wake up planning to trauma dump on a stranger. But somehow, in the flow of conversation, the words just came, and once they started, you couldn't stop them. It felt like relief, like finally being able to breathe, like someone was listening, and maybe, just maybe, they would understand. But then the conversation ends, and you're left with the sinking feeling that you've exposed yourself in a way that wasn't safe, that you've given pieces of your story to someone who didn't earn them, that you've made yourself vulnerable to someone who might use it against you, or worse, someone who will simply walk away and forget you ever said anything at all. And here's what makes oversharing so painful. It's not that you want to tell everyone everything. It's that you don't know how not to, because somewhere deep inside you believe that if you don't make yourself interesting, if you don't offer up your pain, your secrets, your story, you will be invisible. And being invisible feels more dangerous than being exposed. They say people who overshare just need attention, that they're dramatic, that they're seeking validation or trying to make everything about them, that they lack social awareness, that they don't understand appropriate boundaries, that they need to learn when to keep things to themselves. But the truth is far more complex, far more painful. People who overshare are not doing it for attention. They're doing it for connection, and they've learned, often through years of neglect or emotional abandonment, that the only way to get connection is to offer something valuable, something raw, something that makes them memorable. Think about the child who grows up in a home where love is inconsistent, where attention is scarce, where parents are physically present but emotionally absent. That child learns quickly that being good, being quiet, being easy doesn't get them noticed. But being interesting does. Having a story does. Having drama, having problems, having something worth talking about, that gets a response. So they learn to perform, to exaggerate, to turn their pain into narrative, not because they're manipulative, but because it's the only way they've ever been seen. Or think about the child who grows up feeling invisible, who watches their siblings get attention while they fade into the background, who learns that unless they do something extreme, something shocking, something that demands to be noticed, they will be forgotten. That child becomes the adult who overshares, who tells too much, too fast, to anyone who will listen. Not because they lack boundaries, but because their boundaries were never respected in the first place. Because they were taught that their inner world only mattered if it was entertaining, that their feelings only deserved attention if they were extreme enough, tragic enough, interesting enough. And so they offer themselves up. They hand over their stories like gifts, hoping that this time someone will see them. Really see them, not for what they can provide, not for how interesting their trauma is, but for who they are beneath it all. But that rarely happens. Because oversharing doesn't create the intimacy they're seeking. It creates discomfort. It pushes people away. It makes others feel overwhelmed, unsure how to respond, uncertain whether they're equipped to hold what's being offered. And the oversharer feels that distance. They feel the pulling back. They see the polite smile, the quick subject change, the subtle signs that they've said too much. And the shame returns, and the belief gets reinforced: I am too much. I ruin things. I should have stayed quiet. But the pattern doesn't stop. Because the need to be seen is stronger than the fear of being too much. And so the cycle continues. From a psychological perspective, oversharing is often rooted in insecure attachment, specifically anxious attachment. It develops in childhood when a caregiver's responsiveness is inconsistent, when love is unpredictable, when a child learns that they cannot rely on steady, consistent emotional availability, so they must do something to earn it. They become hypervigilant to connection. They learn to read the room, to sense when someone might be pulling away, and they panic. And in that panic, they offer more vulnerability, more honesty, more of themselves. Because if they can just say the right thing, share the right story, show the right amount of pain, maybe the person will stay. This is what attachment theory calls protest behavior. It's an attempt to keep someone close by intensifying emotional expression. And oversharing is one form of that protest. It's a way of saying, please see me. Please don't leave. Please let me matter to you. But here's the painful irony. The very behavior meant to create closeness often creates distance. Because oversharing, especially in new or casual relationships, violates an unspoken social contract. It asks for an intimacy that hasn't been built yet. It demands a level of emotional investment that the other person isn't ready to give. And when that person pulls back, the oversharer doesn't interpret it as a mismatch of timing or context. They interpret it as proof of their deepest fear. I am too much. No one can handle me. I will always be alone. And that belief, that core wound of being too much, becomes the lens through which they see every interaction. Every conversation becomes a test. Every moment of silence feels like rejection. Every attempt to connect feels like a gamble they're destined to lose. And so they keep oversharing, not because it works, but because it's the only strategy they know. But here's the part that makes this pattern so hard to break. It's not just about seeking connection. It's also about control. When you've been hurt deeply, when you've been betrayed, abandoned, or rejected in ways that shattered you. One of the ways you protect yourself is by controlling the narrative. You tell your story first. You reveal your wounds before someone can discover them. You show your flaws before someone can use them against you. Oversharing becomes a preemptive strike. It's a way of saying, this is who I am. This is my damage. If you're going to leave, leave now. Don't wait until I'm attached. Don't wait until it will destroy me. And in a strange way, this feels safer. Because if you reveal everything up front and someone stays, you can trust that they're staying for the real you. And if they leave, well, at least you weren't blindsided. At least you saw it coming. At least you didn't waste time believing someone could love you when they couldn't. But this strategy comes at a cost. Because intimacy isn't built through instant disclosure. Intimacy is built through gradual revelation, through the slow, careful process of being seen in layers, through earning trust and giving trust in equal measure. When you skip that process, when you hand over your entire story in the first conversation, you rob both yourself and the other person of the experience of building something together. You don't give them the chance to choose you slowly, carefully, deliberately. You demand an immediate decision. Accept all of me right now, or leave. And most people, when faced with that demand, will leave. Not because you're too much, but because the intensity is overwhelming, because they didn't sign up for that level of emotional labor with someone they barely know. Because healthy relationships don't start with crisis-level disclosure. And so the pattern repeats, and the wound deepens, and the belief becomes more entrenched. No one wants the real me. I am unlovable. I will always be too much. And here's what this pattern steals from you: the experience of being slowly known, the experience of revealing yourself piece by piece and watching someone stay, the experience of building intimacy through time, through shared experience, through the accumulation of small moments that say, I see you, I'm still here, you matter to me. When you overshare, you deny yourself that experience. You skip to the end of the story before the beginning has even been written, and in doing so, you never get to experience the quiet, steady intimacy that comes from being chosen not for your trauma, but for your presence, not for how interesting your pain is, but for who you are when you're simply being. You also lose the ability to discern who is safe, because when you tell everyone everything, you don't learn to recognize the people who have earned your vulnerability. You don't develop the instinct that says, this person has shown up consistently, this person has proven trustworthy, this person deserves to know this part of me. Instead, you give your story to anyone who shows the slightest interest, and some of those people will hold it carelessly, some will gossip about it. Some will use it to feel better about their own lives. Some will minimize it, dismiss it, or worse, weaponize it against you. And every time that happens, the wound deepens. Because it confirms the belief, I cannot trust anyone. People always leave. I should have kept my mouth shut. But you didn't overshare because you're reckless. You overshared because you're starving for connection, starving to be known. Starving for someone to look at you and say, I see you, your pain is real, you matter. And that hunger is not something to be ashamed of. That hunger is human, but the way you've learned to feed it, through rapid, unfiltered disclosure to people who haven't earned it, is hurting you. It's keeping you in a cycle of exposure and rejection that confirms the very fear it's trying to prevent. There is a moment, quiet, barely perceptible, when the pattern begins to crack. It doesn't happen in a grand revelation. It doesn't happen when someone tells you to just stop oversharing. It happens in exhaustion, in the moment when you've overshared again, felt the regret again, watched someone pull away again, and something inside you whispers, I can't keep doing this. Not because someone shamed you, not because you've decided to be different, but because you're tired. Tired of the cycle. Tired of the shame. Tired of handing pieces of yourself to people who don't know what to do with them. And in that tiredness, a question begins to form. What am I really looking for? What do I think will happen if I tell them everything? What am I trying to prove? And the answer, when it comes, is heartbreaking in its simplicity. I just want to matter. I just want to be seen. I just want someone to care. And beneath that, I'm afraid that if I don't make myself interesting, if I don't give them something dramatic or deep or raw, they'll see how ordinary I am, and they'll leave, because ordinary has never been enough. And there it is, the core wound. The belief that your worth is tied to your story, that you are only valuable if you are entertaining, if you are tragic, if you are complex enough to hold someone's attention. But what if that belief is wrong? What if you've been taught a lie? What if you were always enough? Not because of what you survived, not because of how interesting your trauma is, but simply because you exist. What if being ordinary is not the same as being forgettable? What if being quiet is not the same as being invisible? What if connection doesn't require you to bleed on command? These are the questions that begin the healing, not by forcing yourself to stop talking, not by building walls and pretending you're fine, but by gently, slowly beginning to believe that you matter even when you're not performing your pain. Healing the pattern of oversharing is not about becoming closed off. It's not about never being vulnerable again. It's not about building rigid boundaries that keep everyone at arm's length. It's about learning discernment. It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. That vulnerability is not a gift you hand out freely. It's something precious that should be given to people who have proven they can hold it with care. It's about understanding that intimacy is built slowly, that real connection doesn't require you to reveal everything in the first conversation. The people who are worth knowing will stay even if you don't perform for them. It's about asking yourself, before you share something deeply personal, am I sharing this because it's appropriate and this person has earned my trust? Or am I sharing this because I'm afraid that if I don't, I'll be forgotten? And it's about sitting with the discomfort of not oversharing, of letting silence exist, of having a conversation that stays on the surface and not feeling like you failed because you didn't go deep, of trusting that connection can happen in small moments, not just in dramatic revelations. This is hard work because it means confronting the belief that has governed your entire relational life, that you must earn love through disclosure, that you must prove your worth through your story, that you're only interesting if you are wounded. And unlearning that belief is not quick. It's not linear. There will be days when you overshare again, days when the old pattern feels safer than the new one, days when staying quiet feels like being invisible, and you panic and hand over your story to someone who didn't ask. And that's okay. Healing is not about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about noticing the pattern, understanding why it exists, and slowly, gently, choosing differently when you can. It's about learning that you are not your trauma, you are not your story, you are not the collection of painful things that have happened to you. You are a person, a whole person, worthy of connection not because of what you've survived, but because of who you are. And who you are is enough. Even on the ordinary days. Even when you have nothing dramatic to share. Even when you're just existing quietly, without performance or revelation. You are enough. There is a quiet grace in the person who learns to hold their story carefully, who learns that not every moment requires depth, who learns that silence is not abandonment, and surface conversation is not rejection, who learns that being known is not the same as being exposed. That person is not closed off, they're not distant. They are not afraid of intimacy, they have simply learned that intimacy is not built through rapid disclosure, it's built through consistency, through time, through the slow accumulation of moments where someone shows up again and again, proving they are safe. And when that safety is established, when trust has been earned through action, not demanded through intensity, then vulnerability becomes something different. It's no longer a desperate bid for attention, it's no longer a test to see if someone will stay. It's a gift, a choice, an act of trust between two people who have built something solid enough to hold it. And that kind of vulnerability doesn't leave you feeling ashamed. It leaves you feeling seen, truly seen, not for your trauma, not for your story, but for the person you are becoming, the person who is learning to trust slowly, to share carefully, to believe that they matter even when they're not bleeding. So if you are someone who overshares, hear this. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not attention-seeking or dramatic or inappropriate. You are someone who learned that love is earned through performance. That connection requires you to be interesting. That mattering means making yourself memorable, even if it means exposing yourself in ways that aren't safe. And that lesson made sense. It came from a place of survival. It was your way of trying to be seen in a world that looked past you. It was your way of trying to matter to people who didn't know how to see you without the performance. But that lesson is not the truth. It's a scar. And scars, while they tell the story of where you've been, do not have to dictate how you move forward. You are allowed to unlearn it. You are allowed to believe that you matter even when you're not sharing something deep. You are allowed to have surface conversations without feeling like you're failing at connection. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself private, not because you're hiding, but because those parts are sacred and not everyone has earned access to them. You are allowed to build intimacy slowly, to let people prove they're safe before you hand them your story. To trust that real connection doesn't require you to bleed in the first conversation, and you're allowed to believe that you are enough, not because of what you've survived, not because of how interesting your pain is, but because you are human. And being human is enough. You don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to make yourself fascinating. You don't have to give away your deepest truths to strangers in the hope that one of them will finally stay. The people who are meant for you will stay without the performance. They will see you in your ordinary moments and still choose you. They will hear your silence and not interpret it as absence. They will know you slowly, carefully, over time, and that slow knowing will be more intimate than any rushed confession could ever be. You deserve that kind of connection, the kind that doesn't demand everything from you up front. The kind that builds slowly, steadily, safely. The kind that says, "I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to prove your worth to me. You already matter, and you do matter. Even when you're quiet, even when you have nothing dramatic to share, even when you're just being, you matter." If this video made you feel seen, if something inside you recognized the pattern, the shame, the desperate need to be known, then know this: you are not the only one. There are so many of us who have learned to offer ourselves too quickly, too completely, to people who weren't ready to hold us, who have spent years believing that our worth is tied to our story, who have handed over our deepest truths to strangers, hoping that this time someone would see us and stay. And if that's been your experience, then this space is for you. This is not a place where we pretend that change is instant, or that healing is simple, or that you can just decide to stop oversharing and everything will be fine. This is a place where we sit with the complexity, where we honor the wounds that taught us to perform, where we allow ourselves to be imperfect, still learning, still figuring out how to protect our own hearts. If you'd like to stay connected to this space, you're welcome here. This is a place where we explore the hidden corners of the human heart, the parts that learn to bleed for attention, the parts that ache to be known, the parts that are slowly learning they were always enough. We talk about the psychology behind the patterns that make us feel broken. We talk about the wounds beneath the behaviors. We talk about what it means to heal, not by becoming someone else, but by learning to hold ourselves with the same gentleness we wish someone had held us. If that resonates with you, you're invited to subscribe, not because you have to, but because you might find something here that helps you feel a little less alone, a little more understood, a little more willing to trust that you don't have to perform to be loved. And if you'd like, you can share your own quiet truth below, not because you have to, but because your words might help someone else feel less alone. Maybe you've struggled with oversharing. Maybe you've felt the shame that comes after. Maybe you're just beginning to realize that you don't have to give everything away to matter. Whatever your story is, it matters. And sharing it might be the thing that helps someone else finally feel seen. You are allowed to be seen slowly. You are allowed to be known over time. You are allowed to trust that real connection doesn't require you to expose yourself before you're ready. You deserve gentleness. You deserve people who will wait. You deserve to matter without the performance. Be kind to the parts of you that learned to overshare. They were trying to survive. And now, you're learning something new, that you can be loved without giving everything away. That you can be enough without the story. That you matter simply because you exist. You deserve to be held carefully. You deserve to be known slowly. You deserve to trust that you are enough.